At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode, as always, is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether it be on Patreon or Facebook. Thank you all so very much. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, sharing, all of that good stuff. So thank you so very much. It is July 24th, 2023. And just a couple days ago, it was a special day. One, it was my dad's 70th birthday. That was awesome. Took him to a car museum, and he lost his shit in a good way. He was like a little kid in a candy store, man. And or if you can just remember being a kid on Christmas and you're just wanting to open that present. When you open it and you see something that you wanted so bad, and it's that's exactly how my dad was when he saw this first glimpse of these 1920s like Duesenbergs. It was crazy, but it was an excellent time. And we also went out to a baseball game. They had a fireworks show, and it was just excellent. So Dad, happy 70th birthday. And I believe he's driving back to Michigan now from here in Indiana. And also, it was my 10-year anniversary of my last day in dispatch. And for Open Mic Live, I went through that, kind of talked about that day. And a couple days ago, I was actually telling my daughters the story of, me going in and how my last shift went from a 12-hour to a 16-hour shift. Yep. In dispatch style, my last shift was an overtime shift. I volunteered for it. I volunteered for those last 4 hours because I wanted to finish it with my team. That meant a lot to me. And just so much crazy stuff happened that day, but it was good. So that was 10 years. It was 10 years ago that I had my last day in dispatch, and so much has happened since then. So thank you, all of you, for the support. I appreciate it more than you know. And a lot of big things coming up. We got the National APCO Conference coming, and so much more. But I guess today we have been talking back and forth, and I'm just very happy to have her on, and we're going to not just learn a lot about her public safety story, but a lot of different things. So let's jump in. Let's get started. My guest today is Sarah, and she's a police officer near Atlanta, Georgia.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Oh, I cannot wait. So I will tell you right off the bat, when you had sent me a message and you said that I found a time slot or whichever it was that you said, I didn't see it until very early this morning. And I opened up my laptop and I went to it and I was like, oh, the 24th. That's today. All right.
today.
So
That's why I said something last night. I was like, oh, he's ignoring me.
yeah, no, I was no, and then I ended up, I think you might have sent a message right when I hit the X to kill the, TikTok live that I was doing,
Okay.
so I didn't see the last message that popped up because something else popped up and covered it,
Okay.
and I thought, "Oh, well, I guess we'll see what happens." But yeah, then I saw that this morning, I was like, "Hell yes, let's do this,
I
let's get this
know.
going," and, again,
This
I
is
am
a long time coming.
yes, excited to
Yes.
have you on. It's an honor to have
Thank
you
you.
here, and, let's jump right in. So, how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
So it's kind of a funny story because I went into policing at a time that nobody wanted to be a police officer. No one was applying. It was right after the stuff happened with George Floyd,
Mhm.
and around about that time, I had kind of a breakdown. I was at my job. I was 30 at the time, and I was not happy. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I was a pastry chef in Atlanta in Midtown, and I loved what I did. I'm very talented at doing that, but I wasn't happy with my boss. And you don't quit a job, you quit your boss, and that's
Mhm.
what I did. But before that happened, I knew I wanted to make a change, and so I looked. I said, "Sarah, what would make you happy?" And I was like, "Policing." That was my answer that came to me, and I immediately got on my laptop and I was looking for jobs and I was physically training. I was going to PTs. I went to several different PTs, and the one that I ended up going to, I knew it was my home when I got there because within 5 minutes, I knew that the guys there, they loved each other and they were a family. And I hadn't seen that in any of the other ones. I'm like, this place is different. This is where I want to be. So, before I ended up getting the job or quitting, I wasn't able to quit. We had COVID because that was March of 2020. So I lost my job. I was laid off. They told us 2 weeks. I was laid off permanently. They kept like saying, "Okay, we're going to give you off a month. Okay, we're going to give you off a month." And so I ended up losing my job. So I didn't have a job for 6 months. And then I finally got on with where I'm at now. I've been there about 3 years, 3 years next month. So yeah, it's funny that I got hired because they had told me, "Sarah, if you had applied at a time there was a lot of people applying, I probably wouldn't have made it because of my background. Who wants to hire a girl that says pastry chef, all baking for the last 10 years?" But they did. It was meant to be. So I was very lucky.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
do you come from a family of public safety at all, or you just it just kind of popped in your head and you're like, "This is kind of what I
No.
wanna do?"
Yeah, we had nobody in our family other than a couple of military. But what was so funny was my eldest brother, I have two older brothers,
Mhm.
at the same time, without talking to each other at all about this, he decided he wanted to become a police officer. And I called him, I'm like, "Hey, Seth, I made this decision. I'm scared to tell mom." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, I made the same decision." So we actually were in academy. He's in Indiana. We're states away, states away, and we're both in police academy at the same time. So it was super cool to go through that experience with my brother.
That's pretty awesome right there,
Yeah.
and, I feel like a lot of times and maybe it so it's like this in general for a lot of people, right? But also during the pandemic, it opened everyone's mind, right? What are some
Mhm.
things that I've always wanted to do? A lot of people are posting videos of hobbies that they were now really getting into because everyone was
Yes.
stuck at home, right? But also
Mhm.
others, kind of wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Mhm.
And maybe that's what it was kind of for you as well, as you
Yeah.
were saying, just kind of thinking and thinking what you wanted to do. And then, of course, your brother too. And now you're here. And people always say, especially with public safety, it gets into your blood right
It
away.
does. Yes. I immediately knew it was the best, most fun job I'd ever had. And I've had a lot of jobs, from 16 till now. I've had a lot,
Hmm.
but this was so different, and it's hard to explain. First responders were so close knit because you don't know what it is until you become a member of that club.
Yeah.
And the bad thing about that is you kind of want to stick with first responders and talk to first responders. That's why they say police officers are so bad at losing their friends because they only want to hang out with police officers because they understand. It's so bad. I mean, gosh, sometimes we're out eating dinner and we're talking in signals and codes. I mean, you know how it is. It's so silly. It's just easier. It's just faster. Like I'll text my civilian friends. I'll be like, yeah, I'm like code 8, and they're like, what? You know, C8. They have no idea what I'm talking about, and so it's very important for you to turn it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had never experienced a family. Instead of a coworkers, they're a family. It's
Right.
so very different because these are people you'll die for. My old coworkers, my old job. Well, are you kidding me? So like to have this, it's so incredibly different to say,
Right.
"Hey, buddy, I will protect you." And I've had my guys step in front and protect me personally. You know, as a female, they have that in them, and so it's very cool to be a part of that. To be on a call, and this one call, talk about it really quick. One of my coworkers, he's my zone partner for that day. There was this lady. I ended up arresting her the third time. It was over a course of like a month and a half.
Mhm.
And this was the first time I was out with her. She would get very drunk and go shopping and try to eat the food at Kroger, and big old mess. So this time I was not willing to arrest her because her child was in the vehicle.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and we're in front of Kroger. I don't want to cause a scene. But anyway, very drunk, poked my vest with her finger. And I'm not threatened because you're very drunk, you're having trouble standing. So, you know, I
Right.
don't like when people touch me, obviously. Police officers don't like that. But she poked my vest. And me, I'm like, okay. My zone partner stepped in front. He's taller than me, stepped in front of me. He's like, you will not touch my zone partner. And like that, I was like, wow, that's cool. You know, it's that blanket protection. So
Right.
I love it. I'm a part of this
It's
family and I'm here to stay. So
yeah, it's something that's hard to explain, and I remember as well with friends that were outside of public safety. You know, I would mention things like that, or even one of the, the first times I started, going to cookouts or whatever with some of the officers that I worked with, and they said, "So you're partying?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, yeah, we were." Like, we're humans, like they're humans just
yeah,
like us,
right,
there's nothing different. And I say that
right.
too because my brother and I were hanging out with some officers, and my brother felt kind of weird, and I said, "Dude," I said, "What's wrong with you?" He goes, "I don't know." Because I just never imagined like hanging out playing pool at, at a house that an officer owns, and there's a bunch of officers here and you're here too, and I'm like sipping on a beer, and my buddy goes, "We're we're just like you."
We're the same.
I know. And
But
he started laughing, and then he ended up being more comfortable after that little joke, but it's odd, because I mean, you know the job and everything, right? Or people that are outside looking in, they think they know what it is,
right.
but it's not always the
And
same,
that's
right?
exactly what it is. It's a public perception that,
Mhm.
yes, when we're on the clock, we do have to be like super dialed in. But at the end of the day, if we've had a tough shift, um, we are human and we have emotions. And I might say, "Hey, Zoni, it's been a rough day. We've been catching so many calls. We want to park up for a minute." Why? Because we want that human interaction of
Right.
just parking our cars up and saying hello and talking to each other.
Mhm.
And people, I just think that people don't get that. They just think that we're all "Ugh," all the time. No, we're not. We still want to laugh. We still want to say hello and
Right.
survive emotionally and mentally and physically our shift. And I just think people watch too many TV shows and movies and they're like, oh, they're robots. Well, we're not
Oh,
robots. Neither are
yes.
dispatchers. I mean, we all have emotions. We're regular people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that you're right. A lot of entertainment, whether it be TV or movies or
Mm.
whichever, paints a different picture. The perception is always off. It's just like, some of the shows that have 911 calls that are coming in, and you see them with all this fancy stuff, and they're pinpointing every single time and seeing in different spots. You're like, that's not how it works.
Exactly.
It
They're so
doesn't work
fake.
that way at all.
I can't watch police shows. First off, I don't like that. When I'm off the clock, that's not what I want to watch. But I tried one and I couldn't even get through the pilot because I said, this is so fake. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. They're running around with their guns out. I'm like, bro, why is your gun even out of the holster right now? And every single every call was a hot call. I'm like, no, why don't y'all show the dumb calls? Like the 90% of the dumb stuff we deal with, they don't show that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. I'm so glad you're getting a tone out on every single call you go on. That's cool.
So, looking back at the beginning and everything, you talk about doing PT and everything over and
Mhm.
over, getting ready and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, going towards the academy and everything. I want to tell you this story really quick. And people who have heard this podcast before, they've probably heard this story many times, but I want to share this with you. At one point, when I was working dispatch in Florida, our records clerk, her husband worked for FHP, for the Florida Highway Patrol, and he would come in every so often, and he would say to me, like, "You would make a good trooper. I think you would do well." So he hooked me up, and I was able to go, and I went to do the physical test and all the other testing.
Yeah.
The physical test, I I passed it, and
Okay.
there's a time limit, right? There's a time limit
Mm.
that you meet, and I still had, I think, like a minute and a half left, worth of time. But my issue was that I went through the entire obstacle course, right? And then I get to the 100-pound, like, dummy that you have to drag,
You drag, yeah.
okay? Yes. And I'm halfway through that part, and I hear everyone, they're like, "Go, go Martinez, go Martinez." And I'm halfway through, my right leg cramps up
No.
right in the top of my thigh, cramps up like you wouldn't believe, and I flew back, and when I flew back, my left foot, my went up, and my shoe flew off in the air, and I fell back, and one of the drill
Oh,
sergeants
no.
is there yelling at me, "Get your ass up, Martinez, get your ass up, you gotta save that person." So I get up, and I'm, like, hitting my leg to just, like, work, leg,
Yeah.
work, and I make it through, and I make it back through the course with one shoe on, and the ground was all wet and everything, so my sock is just, like,
You
just
look so gross.
drenched and destroyed, and I made it. I made it through, and everyone's like, "Yeah, good job." I was like, "Yeah, thanks." And as I was getting ready to leave, the one drill sergeant who was yelling at me, he comes up and brings me my shoe, and he says, "Martinez, you've got a lot of heart, but I need to tell you this. You need to eat more bananas."
Oh, no, 'cause your muscle cramp.
Yes, yeah, because of the muscle
Oh.
cramp. Now, I did all the testing. I've passed everything. The only thing that kept me out was my credit score, believe it or not. I was
What?
2 Yeah, I was 2 points off of the minimum credit score that you needed to go into the academy. It may have changed now, but back then, and I asked them too about that. I said, "What is that all
What does that
about?"
have to do with anything? Yeah.
Right. Well, they said because of the credit score or whatever, that might mean that you're irresponsible or whatever, or something with money. And if you're hard up for money, you might take a bribe. Like if someone wants
Oh, come
information.
on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what it was. And I said, okay, well, that would not have happened, but I understand. So
Right.
it ended up working out though, because this is what I do now for a living and stuff. So everything ended up working out the way it was supposed to. But
I I
yeah.
agree with that, and I believe in that there's reasons at the time it sucks when doors shut and you don't know
Mhm.
why, but, I just wanted to tell you this while we were recording, how impressed I am with you, and I don't know if anyone has said this to you lately, because a lot of times people say nice stuff about people behind their back and not to their face. So I wanted to say this so that your followers can hear this. I think it's absolutely amazing what you've done. You are actually doing what I am trying to do, because I always say there's so many people in the world, but one person can make a difference. If they make up their mind, that one person can affect everyone. And you have effectively done that. You were one dispatcher who you didn't like what's going on. You're like, no, 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 no. This is not how you're, I'm not clerical. This is not what you're going to do to me. You're not going to do this to all of us. But you were able to make that change. And look how expanded you have since then. I think it's amazing. You've worked so hard
Thank
for
you.
it. And I am so impressed by you. Reading your book, I mean, gosh, this is a struggle, but it's amazing. And this is what I need to read. So just me alone, you've affected me by opening my eyes. You've opened my eyes to things I didn't know. It's so easy to say, Oh, I'm a police officer, I had problems. Oh, it's me. Oh, I have PTSD, and it's just police officers. You don't think about fire, you don't think about dispatchers, you don't think about these other people, the call takers, but you've done that for me. Just reading this book alone has just I'm like, "Gosh, why have I not thought of this?" And if we can talk about this a little bit later, I've actually
Sure.
written, some notes. I've been so affected by everything, I'm writing notes on different pages. Um, Actually, if you don't mind, I would if we could talk about it right now. This is a question that I
Yeah.
had that I thought, "Why have I never thought of this before?" Is one of the stories in here, and the note that I wrote, because at the very end, the dispatcher saying, let's see, let me go over the story really quick. It is a dispatcher who took the call, and there was a child that was 10 years old, and your 13-year-old babysitter hung themselves in the kitchen. And at the end, it says, I can still hear your voice and your screams. It's been 7 years, and I still remember your name and pray that you got through it. And so I wrote, people have no idea their dispatcher continues to think of them possibly for forever. Um, and a question I had that I wrote down was, do dispatchers' blood run cold when they realize how serious a call is? Does making a tone out affect them how it affects officers? Because as a police officer, when I hear a tone out,
Mhm.
everything stops. I'm turning up my radio. It's just chill bumps running down me because I know something bad is happening or something is very important that we have to be there very quickly. So all of us, it affects us that way. And I thought, do dispatchers have that when they're actually like making this happen? How does that affect them?
Yeah. So, whenever for at least just kind of talking about my last center that I was at, so there would be on the weekend, there would be 4 of us. Otherwise, during the week, there's only 3 of us for the entire county. And this is I think it's over 100,000 people or something like that with multiple fire, EMS, and, law enforcement agencies. So you've got 3 people that are running everything. 1 person on main phones, 1 person on
Yeah.
backup main phones and radios, and then another person on main radios. And if you're on that backup one and you're running something for someone else at the time and you hear that tone out, oh, yes, at attention,
Yeah.
immediately looking to see what it is that is going on in case you need to back up or do something else. Because if it ends up going to what we called code 7, where all the main traffic stays on the main radio and everything goes to like a secondary channel, that
Gotcha.
backup person is the one who is running it from there, also trying to take calls at the same time because there's only 3 of us. So you've got all of that that's going on at the same time. And yeah, for those tone outs,
Yeah.
that would be a, "Oh shit, what's going on?" Or not
Right.
just that, if you're the person who's on main radios, and again, just talking about my center because we were just on the other side of the room, so that we would be able to hear the typing. So if somebody were to answer the phone and they would say, "Allegan 911, where's your emergency? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?" And then you just start hearing typing real hard and fast. You know some shit is going down. And I've got goosebumps just thinking about it right now, just talking
That's
about it.
crazy.
But that's how we would know that
Okay.
something crazy was going on. Now, here's the other thing. If you're the person who is taking that call, you're typing everything in the narrative, right? You're not only listening to the entire environment, the background in the on the phone call, but you're
Mhm.
listening to what is going on in the room at the same time. So if this is an unknown situation that you're putting in and they tone it out, someone asks a question over the radio, I would still type it and yell it over at the same time so that they would be able to get that information, but also it's going in the narrative. Now, during that time, there might be a medical or fire that's going on, and I'm still
Yeah.
talking on that radio all at the same time and maybe possibly eating something or trying to eat
Yeah.
something because I can't get up.
Yeah. Y'all aren't paid enough. I have said it a million times over when I have gone to my dispatch and seen them. I'm like, y'all aren't freaking paid enough. It's wild. Um, I'll talk about Emily really quick. So
Yeah,
Emily,
sure.
yeah, she is my favorite dispatcher that we have. She's an amazing person. She's so incredibly talented at what she does. All of us at my PD just absolutely like when we hear her voice, we're like, yes, she's running the radio tonight because she's very, very smart, very tactical dispatcher.
Mhm.
And so when I went up there and saw her, I said, "Hey, let me come visit you. You show me what you do because they never did that when I was in academy. I don't
Mhm.
know why. I mean, They should have put me up there for like 8 hours. I don't understand why that's not part of our training because it makes a lot of sense for me to understand as a new person.
Right.
If I saw all the things my dispatcher has to do and the crazy program, I said, this is the worst program. This is what y'all typing all these freaking numbers in there. This is wild. I thought it was going to be something really current. I said, is this from the 90s? Like, this is just such a terrible program, the way you have to type this stuff. And they're all because they understand it. And I'm like, my little brain doesn't understand this. This is extremely hard,
Mhm.
with it's so much. And so I think it would help police officers, especially new ones, if they go see what they have to do, when you're keying up and you're saying your call sign and you, okay, maybe slow down just a second because they haven't even gotten your screen pulled up. Now I see how long it's right. And now they're having to repeat, and so like now you're wasting everybody's time. Now you're holding up a radio because you are stupid and you don't know. You need to, like, if you understand, if you saw that for 8 hours and saw what they went through, then you say, oh, you know what? Next time I'm going to slow down. I'm going to say my badge number and then I'll let them raise me back. So then I know they're ready and I can give them my information.
It
So,
it definitely does help because for a while there, I mean, and it didn't happen in the beginning, but what we had was that um, sergeants would bring in some of their new recruits and such, and they would sit in there with us
mhm.
for a little while. And it wasn't like that in the beginning, but they started doing it because we were all trying we were always doing ride-alongs, right? When we would come on,
Mhm.
we would be new. We would do the ride-alongs. We had 3 ride-alongs that we had to do, and then they started doing it where they would bring someone in to sit with us for a few hours so that they would know what it was that we were doing as well. And it was really good to bridge the gap
Yeah.
between all of us in public safety so that we knew what was going on. And I'll say this. So when I first started the podcast, the first 3 episodes that went out, one of the deputies that I used to work with, very cool, but very hard ass, former Marine, and nothing like would shake him or whatever. And he would sometimes ask, like, when I ask you guys to run something, and you tell me go to the channel and stand by, what are you guys doing? Because sometimes I'm just waiting there.
Mhm.
And I would tell him, there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. So, with that being said, he listened to those first 3 episodes back in 2013 is when it was. And he sent me a message. He sent me an MCT message and he said, man, I have learned more about dispatch in these first 3 episodes than my whole 20 years or whatever it was that he was working at the time. And
That's
he
so
goes,
cool.
don't stop what you're doing. He goes, keep doing this because we need to know, we need to
Mhm.
learn this as well.
That's right.
And it helps to know that when you tell us to stand by on the other channel when we need something run, that you guys are doing stuff. Because a lot of times we would think they're probably just in there chilling and letting us wait. Like, no, dude, like there's a lot of shit going on. Like, you guys aren't
Right.
the only ones who are calling in for something.
That's right. Yeah, I hate when
Uh,
people think that when they think they're the priority. I'm like, "Bro, calm down. No, we're not gonna do that." Like if you're in the middle of doing I know your signals and codes are different from mine, but ours
mhm,
at code 18 is a traffic stop. So like
uh-huh.
if I'm telling radio, if I'm keying up and telling them that, and then you try to key up when radio, I'm about to relay that, and you step in between me and the radio. And no, 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 no. That's gonna get me calling you on the phone and yelling at you. I just can't stand when police officers are like, "I'm number one. It's me. I'm priority." No, calm down. No, you're not. Like,
See,
let other people do their thing.
and for us, it would be a 1038. But sometimes some of the officers wouldn't have the 10, they would just say 38. So they would just go something like, for example, Adamate 38. Adamate, go ahead, and then we would go
Yeah.
through it. But if it was somebody new, they would look over, or sometimes, someone new coming in, they and they were on radio, we would tell them we've got a new person on radio, just try to be
Slow
cool
down.
because they're learning and stuff. So a lot of times what they would do almost as like a welcome to dispatch initiation type thing, they would say like Adamate radio, and then the person on radio is just kind of there because we're central, right? They would
Uh-huh.
always call central. So that would be the playing around, is calling radio, kind of like the Super Trooper thing. Don't call me radio, radio. So they would continue saying radio. And I remember one time I was sitting with a trainee, and she turns and looks at me and she goes, Ricardo, are they talking to me? And I said, you're on radio, right? Well, yeah. I'm
Oh
like I'm
no.
like, "They're messing around with you." I was like, "Yeah, just answer."
Oh.
And they're like, "Radio, go ahead." I was like, "No, you didn't have to say radio." So so it was always funny, but it was fun too, because and they would never do it if it was busy, but only when there wasn't anything going on, and it would break up the chaos that is 911 because, man, in
Yeah.
this profession, shit can go from 0 to infinite, it just like that, and it goes
Right.
crazy. It
Yes,
goes
we have
crazy.
been put in our place, Emily. I love her because she's so sassy. When she has somebody new, like sometimes, like if we're looking on CAD and
Mhm.
there's stuff, we'll self-dispatch. And when she's training, she like, I know not to do that. But there are other officers that do it and they're like, hey, I'm on the way to this call. And she will be like, no, you are not on the way to that call. I am training. I am going to dispatch this person I'm training is going to dispatch you to that call. You can wait until you are dispatched. I'm like, yes, queen, yes. Like,
Oh,
tell
snap.
them. I love it. I love it because sometimes you need to be put in your place. And we have learned do not piss off your dispatcher. I have done it. I was hangry one time. I'll never forget it. I pissed off my dispatcher so bad. I was hangry and I yelled at her. And ooh, you better know I was going to every call. And finally, later on, I raised her. I said, I am so sorry. I said, I've had a bad shift. I was very hangry at the time. And I was doing this on channel one. I said, I'm so sorry for earlier. And she's like, you're good. But sometimes you
That
have to
is
do that publicly. Like instead of getting on your cell phone and calling non emergency, like sometimes you need to do that publicly. Like you messed up. Everybody heard it. You messed up. You got to apologize in public.
man. That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
Yep.
I love that, and so going back here really quick, so what was that like for you in the beginning? So let's say, you've gone through the academy and everything, you're starting out, you're getting ready for that first day. What is that like for you?
Super, super rough. So, when right prior to starting academy, gosh, let's see. This was literally when I first got hired. I don't know how I
Mhm.
just realized that it was so close to my hire date. Um, I think it was ten days after I got hired. I was in a really bad car accident on my lean board, so you can see it. That's my little scar right there. I got
Oh, man.
37 stitches from it, permanent disfigurement. I was on 75 headed to work in the morning. I was actually going to the gym um, at my PD,
Mhm.
and I got hit by a semi, and my airbags didn't come out because I got hit from behind. So my Dodge Ram saved my life. And if he wouldn't have looked up at the last minute, he would have just smushed me into goo. But he happened to look up at the very, very last second and ended up totaling his semi on the barrier wall. And it shattered my rear windshield because he hit me so hard. My phone actually came out of the phone case. I'm going to try to say the story quickly. It's just such a terrible story. I usually get upset when I talk about it. But he hit me so hard, my phone came out of my phone case. My head hit the steering wheel. And I don't know if you've ever had a cut on your forehead. It's just profuse bleeding that does not
Mhm.
stop. It was like a waterfall was coming out of my head. And I thought I had lost my right eye. And at the time that he hit me, I thought I was about to die. It's so funny that you have so much time to think thoughts, and it was probably about 1 to 2 seconds, it felt like about 10, that I was sitting there after that initial hit, and there's blood everywhere, and I'm like, "You're about to die. Your second hit is coming. The second hit is gonna hit you, and you will die on this hit." And it never came. The second hit never came, there was nobody behind him, and I was able to get my car on the side of 75, and, nobody stopped to help me. The, driver was deaf, so he couldn't call 911, and I couldn't find my phone, and I thought I'd lost my eye, because there was so much it hit really, really deep right here. So, I don't know the medical terms, but, like, it was like yellow and white stuff was coming out,
Right, yeah.
and it matted my eye up, and so I thought it was gone, and I told myself, "You're not gonna look in that rearview mirror, because if you see that your eye is flat, you're going to lose it." Couldn't find my phone, nobody would stop and help me. I didn't even know the semi driver was there because I have one eyeball. There was a Georgia State trooper a few hundred yards away, pretty far, doing a traffic stop, and I didn't know what else to do, so I ran. And it was like, what time was it? Like 6:45 in the morning. It was still dark. I ran and I ran and I ran, got almost to him. pretty close, and he turns off his blue lights and he drives away. He had no idea I was behind him. I don't know how you merge onto 75 without looking in your rearview mirror and seeing a person that looks like a zombie behind you. He didn't see me. Somehow he didn't see me. So I turned around, I faced the traffic, and I was covered, and I was screaming, "Please, somebody help me!" I didn't have a single person stop. Got back to my truck, found my phone, called 911. I kind of lost it on phone. I was like, help me, I'm bleeding, please help me. I had to calm myself down. My dispatcher calmed me down. And I ended up right being in between the county and 2 different counties. So they ended up, after talking to that dispatcher, she was wonderful and fabulous. She's from my county, sent me to the following county next door. So anyways, that was right before I started academy. I started academy that following January. So I had that accident. I had no sick time. I had no sick leave, no nothing, because I was brand new. I
Right.
got like 3 days off. I showed up at work. They were like, "You don't have any time off. You're brand new." Showed up with stitches. I mean, it was awful. So I'm this brand new person, busted up. I felt terrible. I was on pain medication. They were like, "You can't even take that. Like, it's like you're not even allowed to take that when you work here." So I had to change to ibuprofen. So rolling into healing up and rolling into going to academy in January, um, I actually hid my scar. For a long time, I've hidden my scar, even at work, wearing a headband. And when I went to academy, I was hiding it under a beanie. And do you know why? I thought that they would view it as a sign of weakness, that I was hurt. And when we went to the PT, I made sure, I mean, we're freaking doing a PT. I had it
Yeah.
covered, never took it off. I was sweating under that freaking beanie. I hated it. But I thought they will view me as a victim, and I won't allow anyone to think that I am less than or weaker than them. Silly as that is, that's how I felt. I've hidden it for a long time on duty. I wear a headband. I don't really wear a headband very much anymore because I don't need to hide it. It's a part of me, it's part of my story.
Yeah.
In academy, we were watching videos. It was probably, gosh, halfway through academy, maybe even more. And they showed crash videos. And it was just a whole clip. They were just clip after clip after clip after clip during the class we had.
Oh my God.
And I was watching, I was A-okay, I was fine. I knew that I wasn't super happy about it. And there was this one where it's just a car that goes through their green light, and a semi came and just decimated the vehicle. And I looked down and my hands were shaking.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Sarah, you cannot cry in class. You have your classmates around you. You're trying to be a police officer. You can't feel the way you feel. It's not allowed. You can't be affected by this." But I was affected, and my hands were shaking, and I didn't know what to do. And finally, that class ended, and I went to the bathroom, and I was like, "What do I do?" And I looked at my teacher. I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm not okay. I need to call someone." And I called someone, and he is my doctor now. He's my counselor now, to this day. That was 3 years ago. I called him, and he loves his story. I called his number, and he picked up the phone. He wasn't supposed to pick up the phone. I wanted a voicemail. I wasn't even sure I was going to leave a voicemail. Wasn't sure at the time because I was scared and I thought that I shouldn't be doing this.
Mhm.
He freaking picked up his phone, and I said, "What doctor picks up his own phone?" And the second he picked up the phone, I got out who I was, and that was about it. And I completely broke down in academy crying. I went to the library by myself, completely broke down. And I said, "I'm not okay. I am having problems with this." And ever since then, I'm okay with that now. I don't enjoy 75. It's a death trap. I hate it. But
Mhm.
that's something I've had to overcome. And to me, it's made me a more well-rounded officer. It gives me empathy because sometimes you can go on a call and it could be like a fender bender or something, and these people are so freaking upset and crying, blah blah blah, and you just want to say, "Bro, snap out of it. Golly, it was barely an accident. Mine was way worse." You can't do that because of that person. It is a big deal. Maybe they've
Right.
never had a car accident. So now it's made me have so much more empathy in accidents where I've been on the side of 75 with someone and holding their hand and saying, "You have to get out of the vehicle. It's okay. I'm here. I'm here with you. But we have to get you out of this vehicle in case somebody hits us. We're on the side, but they might hit us. You have to be able, come on, I got your hand. come with me, I'll help you. And I've done that. Oh gosh, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it because it's something I had to overcome
Right.
um, to be able to help other people. So yeah, it was a really, really hard start for policing for me based on that
Damn.
fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, geez. And this is going to sound weird for me to say it. Okay. So bear with me. But sometimes I feel like a lot of things that we go through are meant for us. Um, and what I mean by that is, there's a lot of phone calls that I took where I felt like they were meant for me. For example, when my grandmother passed away and I took that call, it was meant for me to take that because of how everything happened. Like, what are the odds that I would be the one on backup phones,
Yeah.
not even on main phones, to end up taking that call? And a few other calls that I've taken. But I feel like there's experience that we have in life that because of that experience, we're able to help other people
Mhm.
better than anybody else could. Not
Right.
not to say that any of our coworkers or partners, whichever, would not
Mhm.
be able to do it. They'd probably do a phenomenal job. However,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to react or respond in the same way because I have an experience that they don't have. So for
Exactly.
example, even as horrific as it was, and everything that you went through, everything that you had to overcome, you have this experience. So as you were saying, with others that, end up in accidents or whatever, you're able to hold their hand, you're able to talk with them and be there for them. You're able to do it in a way that nobody else can
Mhm.
because you have been through something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Let me tell one story really quick because it makes me
Sure.
think about it.
Mhm.
I think it's very important to have female police officers because there's not very many of us.
Mhm.
And so we can view things differently. We can connect with people differently. I always find it very amusing. Humans are very predictable. That if I go on a call, 95% of the time, I have a male that's my zone partner
Mhm.
because there's just so few of us girls. And if we go on a call, if it's a male complainant, he will address the male officer and only look at him and only speak to him. If we go on a call and there's a female, she will only address me and talk to me and tell her story to me. It's so funny how people do that.
Yeah.
I don't even think they realize that they do that, but they do. Almost everyone. I just have noticed it. Um, but I think it's very important because we do see things differently, and based on what you were just saying on your own experiences and being able to help someone differently. Not that your zone partner is doing it wrong. Your zone partner could do it just fine, but you might have a different experience or see it differently. And there was a call I went on for he was prior military and was feeling suicidal.
Mhm.
And so we went out there. My zone partner beat me out there and was talking to him. And, we had the weapon away. The weapon was, secure in the house. We made sure we were outside the house and we were on the front steps. And I pulled up. He debriefed me very quickly. And he's standing above him while the guy is sitting on the stairs. And immediately I thought, you know what? I don't like that. And I looked at him and I said, hey, man, I said, is it okay if I sit down next to you? And he said, yeah. And I looked at my zone partner, basically saying, hey, watch my back because I'm in a compromised spot sitting
Right.
down, but that's what I have you for. You're standing right here. But I wanted to be able to get down. Now I'm eye level, I'm next to him. And he told me a little bit what was going on. And I was like, you know what? We're the same. And it's the going back to what we were talking earlier, people don't get that we're all the same. And I was able to say, hey, I had a dream 2 nights ago. I said, it's the worst I've ever had in my life. Is it okay if I share it with you? And it was about policing. And it don't super want to talk about it. I don't really cry on talk about it. It was the worst dream. I'll never forget it. I can see it in my brain. It was just a bunch of my police officers were in it. They were not okay. It was very awful, awful. And I was
Mhm.
able to share that with him. I teared up. I had trouble talking to this guy. But sometimes you need someone that has a different experience, and I had just had that dream, and it had affected me where I was woke up in the middle of the night crying. I couldn't go back to sleep the rest of the night because it was so terrible, and I was able to share that with him, for him to say, "Look, I'm a police officer. I'm wearing a badge. I have a vest. I have a gun, but that doesn't mean that I'm not vulnerable to stuff. This stuff can't hurt me because I hurt too. I hurt mentally as well. You're hurting mentally. I'm hurting mentally too, and I have to get over it. So we're here for you. So I don't know, the mental aspect of our job, I don't think a lot of people think about it.
Right, because, we're here doing a job, and people think, especially in dispatch too, people think, we're drones,
Yeah.
and it's not what it is. We're not just answering the phone, but it's
Mhm.
that human part that you're talking about,
Mhm.
where we're all able to connect and relate.
Mhm.
And, it was always something for me, someone calling in and you're trusting a voice. You're calling for help and you're trusting that voice, and my voice has to stay even. But in the back of my head, I'm freaking out with the caller too, but it's my job to not ever show that.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple times where there's been some emotion, whether it's been, sadness or humorous. And some of those calls, like the ones that are on the other end,
Yeah.
sometimes, some people might say, "Oh, that's unprofessional." Well, damn it. Sometimes you have to laugh with the caller, and it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's
I
it's it's
agree.
that it's that human part, and that's
Mhm.
where, as you're telling this story, that's where that connection happens,
Mhm.
because the bottom line is we're all human, and we all
Mhm.
have some experience that we can add in there that will make someone feel more comfortable to be able to just kind of drop their hands and say, "Okay, help me."
Yeah.
And then that's when you're able to move in and do what you have to do. So thank you for your
Yeah.
approach and the things and the way you do it and the way you think, because, man, I think that's what we all need. We just need to be human to each other.
Yeah, I wrote, it's in here somewhere. I wish I knew which page I was on one of the stories in your book.
Mhm.
The note, because I'm just writing down stuff. I came up with the idea I haven't told you about. I'm writing notes. When I'm reading this, I'm writing notes. If it affects me and there's something, I'll either highlight it, circle, or I'll write a note. And I'm going to end up giving this to about 3 or 4 different people on my PD, who I know read books and are very smart and would enjoy it. And I'm going to say, hey, this is what I have. I want you to leave your own notes if you feel like it, or just read it. But if there's something that's on your heart that you need to say, write it in the margins, like how I'm doing. And I want to get it back after I have about 3 to 4 to 5 different people go through it.
Mhm.
And I want to see how they viewed this stuff differently than me. Um, but one of the things I wrote down on here on one of the stories, I said, I think the story was along the lines of, oh gosh, it might have been that awful one from 9/11, where the guy was pinned. He was a police officer that was pinned underneath everything. And he said, he asked me, please don't hang up the phone.
Mhm.
Okay, that was such a hard one. Gosh, that was one of the worst pages. And so, the dispatcher didn't. Okay.
You're okay. You're okay.
So, I shouldn't have brought that one up because that one, like, really affected me. Um, I'm sorry, give me just a second. I have trouble talking.
No, you're good. You're good.
I said because I've had to call dispatch a couple of times in my life, even recently, I thought somebody was breaking in my house.
Mhm.
I know what it's like to have a lifeline. Oh, before you ask that question, I called dispatch because I thought someone was breaking in my home. I actually thought somebody was in my home. And somebody said, well, you're a police officer. Why'd you call 911? I said, well, I put on my gun in my vest. I said, I called 911 to say, y'all better send a unit because I'm about to shoot whoever's in my house because I thought somebody was in my house. That's why I called 911. I cleared my own house before they ever arrived. But I know what it's like to call 911 and be upset. And the note I wrote was, I said, the dispatcher is your lifeline. When you call, they are a voice of hope. They can help you. That voice. And I wrote, who is a lifeline for the dispatcher when they get off of work? Because you just spent 12 hours, maybe 16, of you being a lifeline over and over and over for someone, and they're pulling from you. I like to say it's like a bank, and people make withdrawals from you. And
Yeah.
if you never make a deposit for yourself, you're going to find yourself empty and you're going to find yourself not okay. So
That's very
I,
true.
I don't know if you have an answer to that, but I thought, what are dispatchers doing? Do they feel empty when they leave work? Who is their lifeline? If you've been that person who is almost like Superman and you're helping that person and your officers, everyone's pulling from you, What is it that you do? Who is it that you talk to when you get off of work?
So for a long time, I mean, we didn't talk to each other. Of course, it would be because there again, there's that stigma. Nobody wants to look weak for asking for help or anything, and nobody would want to really
Mhm.
talk too much about some of the calls that were going on, unless it had something to do with, oh, do you have the complaint number, or did you hear what happened with so and so, or
Mhm.
and that was it. It was never getting kind of deep into our feelings about it.
Yeah.
So here's an example for me. Um, I I drove home. It was about 45 minutes. That was my drive from home to work and back, and or the same time back rather. And after a hard day, after a hard 12-hour shift, or even if someone called and I got forced in and it turned into a 16, sometimes an 18-hour shift, I would drive home in complete silence and just with my thoughts, trying to
Mhm.
decompress, yet
Yeah.
the screams, the calls for help, hearing last breaths, all of that is in my head
Yeah.
as I'm driving home. And that's what it would be. It wasn't until I started writing about it because I would bury these calls. I wouldn't talk about it. It wasn't until I started writing about it that I was able to get it out. And that was very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Everything I do now was because of my struggle. And I didn't want others to go through that as well. And I wanted to leave 911 in a better spot than where I found it. And what I mean by a better spot was to at least have more resources or for people to feel more comfortable with opening up and sharing. Because I never wanted someone to say, oh man, Ricardo can't hack it. And, I thought it was weak and it was bullshit
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
there was more courage in actually opening up and sharing and
Yeah.
talking. And then once I did, a lot more people started talking about it as well, and then the podcast comes out, I have others coming on and sharing their stories with their voices, and it just became that much more powerful. And then what I found is that, especially during the I am 911 movement, when it first started and people are sharing their own stories, what I found was that everyone felt alone. But now they had an outlet and they were sharing these stories and they felt better, and more resources started coming out, and things started changing. So there's a lot more resources now. From 2016 on, there have been
Mhm.
way more resources, but before that, there really wasn't a lot of people talking about things. And some of the people who did, I mean, it was very few and far between. But for us, who is there to help us, we're basically there to help each other. And now a lot of people are doing that. I always tell people we only have each other. And a lot of
Mhm.
people that are doing peer support and everything else, they come from the chair. They come from public
Yeah.
safety because we trust that much more with those who know
Yes.
what it is that we're actually going through.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah. I
It's
was gonna
definitely
say something. Oh, go
It's
ahead.
it's definitely, a lot better now. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of times too, some of the things, because so one of the main things, right? We don't get closure. We don't always get closure. We just go to the
Yeah.
next call.
Right.
So for me, one of the things that helped me, and I mentioned this the other day too, but one of the things that helped me was knowing that I did everything that I could, that there was nothing else left for chance. There was no other anything that would be questioned.
Mhm.
Because to me, if I couldn't help that person, I'm already blaming myself. What if I would have changed my questioning? What if I would have done this? Or what if this person would have said this faster? What if, what if, what if, what if? And I'm just destroying myself inside,
Mhm.
wishing and hoping that I could have done something else. And one of the stories that's in that book, I don't remember what page it is, but there is a crib and in it, and that's one of my stories. And it says something about blue face, cold to the touch. It has to do with an infant that the mom found not breathing, and I was giving them CPR instructions, and that one is one that fucked me up. And of course, my supervisor is saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay."
I wrote
But
notes on that one.
but I wasn't okay. And
Yep.
her husband, now this person who was my supervisor at the time, I wasn't a supervisor yet, but she was my supervisor. I actually went to school with her. Her and I grew up together. And it was odd that years later her and I would end up working together in dispatch. So her husband, who was a sergeant at the time, he went out there to that call because they called out for like detective and all this other stuff because they just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything, left for chance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and trying to just pull myself back together after all of this, listening to this mom and how this actually happened. And then EMS calls up for their times and numbers. And they asked for the person who took the call, which was me. And I got on the phone and they said, "Hey man, I just wanted to let you know that when we got there, they were doing textbook CPR. There's nothing
Because of
else
you.
that you could have done." And
Yeah.
that right there helped me, but more so, the sergeant came in, my friend's husband came in, and he sat next to me in dispatch, and he said, "What do you want to know?" I said, "I need to know everything. And everything that you can tell me, please tell me." And he told me, and that was it. I still remember that call. It will always stick with me, but those 2 things helped me get through that, and it was knowing that I had done everything that I
Yeah.
could have done.
I remember, I believe that I read that one last night, and I know that I wrote notes on that one.
Mhm.
And I wish I could find, I don't know what page, you don't know what page that's on.
I'm not sure what page it's
Uh,
on. What's funny though is when you opened the book a little while ago and you showed it on the camera, it was right there.
oh man,
That's
oh
why that's
dang,
why
remember where it
that's
was.
why I brought it up because it was right there.
Because there
Um,
was something that I wanted it that I had to say about that one. Well, dang, I can't find it.
I'm all flipping through the
That
book
one,
as
I
well.
had no idea that one was yours. That one really affected me.
Page 39.
39. Oh, I was way off. Okay.
Mhm. And then for those who are watching and listening and everything, I'll just read the story here really quick.
Mhm.
But it says, "Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough."
Yeah, I didn't write notes, but I highlighted, do I have it on it? Let me just
Yes.
see it. I
Hmm.
highlighted that because that to me, out of everything, that's what stood out. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. And I feel like that's what, an issue that we all have sometimes is that you continue blaming yourself for something that you can't. And kudos to that Sarge to come in there and say something to you. Um, because I guess I've never really thought about that dispatchers don't get closure on anything. Y'all don't know, unless we're telling you on the radio.
Yeah.
I have had for funnier calls, not serious calls, but for
Right.
like funnier calls, I have had like probably 3 different times. They would raise me on the radio and they would say, "Hey, call us on non-emergency on channel 1." And I was like, "Okay." And then people will go on our talk around channel. "Ooh, young blood in trouble. Dispatch wants to talk to you."
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh," and I'm like so nervous. I'm like, "God,
Principal style.
why are they asking for me?" And every single time it was, "Hey girl, how did that call in? We want to know." So it's very funny because I'm like, "Oh my God, I thought they were about to scream at me."
That's
But it's like I
hilarious.
haven't thought about it that they don't get the answer because I might be like, "Hey, radio 10813, I'm done with the call. I didn't write a report. It's
Yeah.
it." So they don't actually know what happened if I do that. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that I've never really thought about. Y'all not getting closure. I get to go to the call. I get to see what happens. I'm the one
Mhm.
there doing stuff, and I don't think about someone saying, "Well, what if I had done better when they called me?" And I think I wrote that on a different one of the stories on here, where I said, "Will this dispatcher ever um, forgive themselves? Will they know that it's not their fault? Will that dispatcher ever realize that?" Because
Yeah.
they might want to say, "Yeah, it's not my fault," but do they really believe that in their heart? Or will they continue to blame themselves for something they don't need to blame, you know? Um,
We're all our own worst critic,
yes.
and I think that's one of the things that sucks the most, especially when you are battling perfectionism.
Mhm.
We're in a job, in a profession where you have to be near perfect, but we also have to give ourselves grace, some sort of grace in knowing that we are also human as well.
Mhm.
And, those last 2 weeks that I was in dispatch, and I mentioned this last night on open mic, but those last 2 weeks, if dispatch were a gang, it felt like I was getting beat out because I took so many shit calls that's how it felt. It felt like the dispatch lords were like, "Hey, you wanna go? Okay, you can go,
No.
but, we're gonna kick your ass on the way out." And there were some really tough calls, and I don't remember honestly if I put it in the book, but there was a story that I added in there. It said something to the effect of, I tried to call you the day that you committed suicide by running your car into a tree. And that one right there really messed me up because it started out as a disorderly complaint. And at the very end of the call, my caller says, "By the way, I think this person's suicidal too." What? That changes everything.
Right, right.
Changes everything, and
Yeah.
every question is immediately in my head. I'm like, did I miss that? Was that not? How
Mhm.
did I not know that?
Yeah.
And I even listened to that call back, but before that, what ended up happening was, I already had the person's vehicle description because they were going to be looking for this person, and it switched it up. I get off the phone. I try calling this person to try to get a hold of them to talk to them, and as the phone is ringing, another call comes in, but it's so busy that nobody can pick up that line. So I hung up the one line, pick up the other, and it's a person saying, "I just saw a vehicle run their car right into a tree." And I thought, hell no. I was like, this can't be happening. So then the person gives me the location. So I'm immediately looking at the map to see where
Yeah.
my original caller was
Yeah.
and how far that person was. And I knew, I could feel it that it was that person. And as I asked for the vehicle description, and everybody's already headed that way to help whoever it is in this vehicle, I asked for the vehicle description from this caller. And when he said the vehicle and color, I remember lipping it as he was saying because I knew it was
'Cause
that
you knew.
person. And sure as shit, man, it was the person that I was trying to reach. And all I could think was, damn, what if I would have been able to get a hold of him a little faster? Could I have
Yeah.
stopped this? I took 30 minutes after all of this. My team was doing their
Yeah.
thing. I took 30 minutes to map this out and looking at the times. Like, that's how much this fucked me up because
Uh-huh.
I wanted to see if there was anything else that I could have done, but there wasn't. This person was already going into the tree. There was no way I could have stopped this.
If
But it
that person wants to kill themselves, then they will. I
right.
hate to even hear you think that way of saying, "Could I have been faster? Could I have done this?" Even
Yeah.
if you would have gotten him on the phone, you don't let's say even if you got that person on the phone, even that might not help. Even you talking
Mhm.
about if they've made up their mind, then that might be it.
I
I
might have I might
hate
have heard it, you know? I might
yeah,
have heard it, but,
yeah,
um, after I realized that there was nothing else I could do, I was fine after that, but I remember my team was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Don't talk to me. Just hold on a minute." I was like, "Give me a moment.
yeah,
I'm trying to go through this right now."
mhm,
And, yeah, that one was something.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
again, that
that's
was
not
one of those things that I needed to know.
yeah.
And, looking at you and your career and everything, the time that you have, been in public safety, from the beginning to even to, like, now, do you remember some of those earlier calls that you went on or, maybe a call that, sticks with you at all?
Yeah, I had a wild first week. I was like, "Policing is amazing," because I thought it was my first week of policing was like TV shows
Mhm.
because, it's never hot calls and wildness but that first week, I don't know any of that, that in my head, that's what policing is. You're always doing something important. You're always saving someone's life. You're doing very serious things, good things that you feel great about every day. I
Mhm.
didn't know what real policing is, that 90% of the calls are very silly things that are usually civil disputes that are just, very dumb things that you kind of have to almost babysit adults and be a peacemaker when they should have figured it out on their own. And my
Right.
first week, it was not like that because that's normally how stuff goes. It was wild. Let's see, my very first day, first call was a SWAT call out. Yeah, and so I'm like, "Yeah!" And I see
Welcome.
somebody running in. Yeah, and I'm like, "Man, this is so cool." And the Sarge on scene was saying looked at me and he's like, can you log into P2P?" And I'm like, "What's P2P?" I didn't even know what he's talking about because it's my first day, first call. I don't even know. I was completely useless. Knew nothing. I'm just like watching people, this is cool. And then the very next day we had a murder. And so all week long it was and we're running code to it and everybody, it was a crazy first week. And so at the end of the week, everybody's, kind of like slapping me on the back. "Yeah, young blood. Oh man, you had such a good week." And I was like, "Yeah." And I thought that was what everything was going to be like. It's not,
Nope.
that's not normal.
Oh
Um,
man. But
there's a call when I was in my second phase of FTO,
mhm.
and I won't forget this, and it wasn't even that crazy, but I won't forget what clicked in my head on that call because unfortunately there are police officers that this doesn't click in their head. And these are the police officers that probably shouldn't be a police officer. Um, I was in my second phase of FTO and they said there is a armed person in a complex and they have a weapon and they're walking around. I can't remember if there were shots fired. I can't remember. And so we're all running code over there. Um, my FTO ended up seeing the guy way further down in the complex, and the other people hadn't. And he is like one of our most fit police officers we have. He's on SWAT. I mean, just in like crazy shape, physical shape, and is a very fast runner. And he starts sprinting towards a car, and I knew he would leave me if I didn't get there on time. I knew he would. And so I'm like, "Wait!" And I'm running. I'm like, "Wait, wait on me." I'm running as fast as I can. I get in the car just in time. Like the car's already like freaking rolling. I get in there and you're 100 miles an hour. And you're like, "Yeah, this is happening." I don't have a rifle because I haven't been get him a weird popping out of the car with our guns out. This is like the first time this has happened to me, because I'm new, I'm trained. This is cool, for this to happen. So we're popping out. We're telling him to get on the ground. And so my trainer's over here and I'm over here and he's given all the verbal commands and the guy has his hands down and he looks up at him because he's prone on the ground and he looks at him and then he looks at me and he sees that I'm maybe it's not a gender thing, I don't know, I made that assumption, I might be wrong. Looks at me and he decides I was the person that out of the two of us that he was going to beg for his life for. And I will never forget his face and the way he looked up at me as I have my gun pointed at him and he is vulnerable and he looked up at me and the way it's like he could see through me and he begged for his life. And in that moment, I finally realized the power I have in my badge and it should never go to someone's head. It should humble you
Right.
and say, "Wow, that's actually scary." And obviously we're not going to shoot this guy. He was no threat to us, at that time. But the knowing you have that possibility that you are given the opportunity, that you have the power to take someone's life or their liberty away. I can take your liberty away by placing you in handcuffs and saying, "No, you're not leaving and you're going to go to jail." I took your liberty. That's the most important thing to any human being is their liberty. And it was in that moment, it took me that long to realize the power of what a police officer has. Is an auspicious moment for me that I don't know, it humbled me to just be there and have my weapon pointed and say, "What if this was me on the ground?" I don't know. I think that's hard for someone to beg for their life. That's very hard.
Wow.
Um,
That's that, that's the whole part of, the having being an empath, especially in this profession, because you do put yourself in the other person's shoes to be able
yeah,
to relate and connect.
yeah,
And you're doing this face to face. Like I'm picturing all of this as you're saying it, and I was getting goosebumps listening to
yeah,
you tell this story. And for us on the phone, changing, right? And there's video to 911 that's coming, which is crazy too. But just over the phone, you're
mhm,
listening to all of this and you're creating these pieces of the puzzle in your brain to put it out there to those who are responding. the best that you can, and you are also at the same time putting yourself in their shoes once again
Mhm,
to relate and to make them feel comfortable
mhm.
and just to be there with them. And I think that's also why a lot of this sticks with us, kind of how you said, you can see that person's face still.
Yeah,
And I think that's a great thing in a way, because in other situations, you'll be able to bring yourself to that moment. Just like for
yeah.
myself, different phone calls that I had taken, I was able to kind of reflect almost at the same time in a split second on a different call that I was in, to kind of center myself and put myself in that position and just do what I was
Mhm.
supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah, that can
Damn.
be very hard. Yeah, I know. That stuff stays with you.
It
It
yeah.
it it's always funny how people, and I know you know this, people always say, "Oh, what's the worst call you've taken? What's the worst call you've been on?" Blah, blah, blah." To me, that one wasn't the worst. I've nowhere in any way, shape, the worst call I've been on, but it stayed with me, it stuck with me for a
Yeah.
reason, 'cause I learned a lesson at that time, and I
Yeah.
don't think that people understand that, we don't really wanna talk about our worst call. It's cool, it's exciting, but for us, it might be something that is extremely stressful.
Right.
I've been, very blessed to not ever have to hear somebody scream 63, 63 on the radio, and I hope that I never, ever hear that, because I don't wanna hear that on the radio. Um, I can't even, we had some new police officers that have dealt with OISs, very early in their career. I went to one, probably we arrived on scene maybe, 4 to 5 minutes after it occurred. We were screaming down 75 at 100 miles an hour because at the time we thought our officer was on the ground. We thought our officer was dead. We didn't know. We had no idea because that person had not talked on the radio and was not talking. And it was probably maybe 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. But to us, it was an eternity before that police officer ever keyed up. And the whole time we're running down there to get to them, we thought that she was dead. And
Wow.
it's not even, they were fine. Everything was great, wonderful. But I thought, man, I don't even have trauma. I don't have trauma. There's so many people that have just, they have been the one that's pulled the trigger. They have been the one that's watched a coworker die, been the person that's tourniqueting their coworker to try to save. Like, I don't have trauma. I'm like, I don't even have a right to say, oh man, I don't feel okay today. That's how I feel because I'm like, there's so many people that are stronger, that have done so much more, that actually have real stuff. So I don't know. It's just sometimes it's like you don't even want to say anything about anything. But I will say one of my things that I hate, that I never want to hear a police officer say again, and I know that I will, is they'll say, well, I can't talk to anyone because I don't want them to take my gun.
Hmm.
And that right there, that one sentence right there is what is wrong with all of the police stations in America. And I don't know why nobody is asking that question of why does my officer feel like they can't come talk to someone because they're afraid their weapon will be taken away. And what happens? Your family comes before your job. So if you're like, man, I'm not okay, but if I say something, we're talking about a sign of weakness, right? You don't want to say anything. Will other people think I'm weak now, right? It's different for males. It's harder for males. And they have a family, they got a wife, they got a kids to support. And to them, they're like, okay, am I able to say something? Because if they say you're not fit for duty, and they take your weapon away, and now you're not getting paid, and you're on freaking leave because they think you're not okay, nobody's ever going to do that. But I just don't understand why we have that. And I just get so frustrated, because nobody is willing to talk about it. We're not willing to talk about suicide of police officers. We're not wanting to talk about that maybe they have bad coping mechanisms. We don't want to talk about that. We want to pretend that it's not happening, that people are drinking their lives away. We're not going to talk about it. Just freaking shutters on your eyes. It's, I don't know. You have already completed what you need to do. You are doing so wonderful, and I believe I was giving a second chance at life for a reason, because I believe that I can make a change. I can make a difference. There's stuff that I have tried to work on and it failed. Um, something really big, and I don't even know if I can really talk about it because I'm gonna make it happen. It failed this year, and it makes me mad because it was something that needed to be done. But there are people that say, "No, we're not going to talk about this. This makes us look bad. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to put it under the rug." No, I'm going to put it back in your face. And next year, I'm repitching it, and we're going to make this happen because this is national, and it will help every single police officer in America. And you're not going to silence me. You did once, and I'm not going to let you do it again because I can go higher. I can go higher than you and you and you, and I will get this out where it needs to be. And the project I'm about to start working on, I'm not going to actually ask permission from my PD. I'm doing it on my own because I'm tired of asking for permission. I'm tired of being told no. And it's a project that I can do and get help from other people that are willing to help and start making a difference. I think it's everywhere across America that all these police officers are dealing with the same thing, and all of their upper brass is just. I'm trying not to get too political. I don't know. There needs to be. Sorry, I need to shut my mouth, but there needs to be a change.
What I was going to say here is I think that's why conversations like this are important, and for people to hear all of this, because there is a lot out there that people don't know about, that they don't know what it is that everyone else is dealing with. You know, you might see something in the news, but a lot of times it's not in the news. It's within our own county or PD or, whichever central dispatch. There's all this other stuff that's internal, right? And in some places they're working on things. In other places it's not there. And people don't care to talk about it, which is why conversations like this are so important. And before we get to the coping mechanism part here, which I've loved having you on and learning more about you and in your career and what you love about it. I mean, I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your face, your passion, all of it. I mean, it hit right away. And all of this, I love it. When you talk about when there are, accidents or, anything else that is going on, something big that is going on in the area, that you're working in, or for myself specifically, 2 times over the radio, I heard the yell for shots fired, and immediately everyone stopped what we're doing. And believe it or not, there actually wasn't anything going on in dispatch at that moment because there was no one on the phone. We were just kind of sitting there talking to each other, and it happened both times. And we heard someone yell, and immediately we sit up and we're like, holy shit. And we just start going through and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And for us, when something like that happens, or if we hear about an accident or someone is out on a call and a fight is breaking out or whatever it is that's going on, we listen to voices and we narrow down those voices. If we don't hear one voice, that's how we know that that's the person that's in trouble. We're listening to voices. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
We know everybody who is out there. We know everyone's voice. And then we start to narrow it down and we're like, that's who it is. And we just continue going.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
One of these stories in here, actually, I think it's in here a couple of times. Man, just waylaid me where dispatcher was saying, I kept raising you. I was raising you by your badge number. And I knew in my heart that you would never answer me. That's rough.
That's why I wanted to have all of these stories out there and for people to read them, for them to understand more what it is that we do in the center, that there's way more to these calls and they stick with us more than anyone will ever know. And a lot of these stories, people would write them and send them in. And one specifically that I always mention because of their response was, my hands are still shaking after typing out this story because I've had it buried for so long, but I'm able to get it out. And because of this outlet, and they said, thank you. And, all of these stories have gone out anonymously and people continue to share and they feel better.
Mhm.
And that's that first step to healing is
Yeah.
opening up and sharing. And then, for those who listen to this, if especially if you are a supervisor, director, deputy director, sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, you listen to all of this, what's the next step?
Mhm.
What are you doing for your people
Mhm.
from here on out?
Yeah.
And I did one of my Imagine Listening sessions, and I did one in Kentucky once, and I knew that there were directors in there, and I asked that question, and they kind of sat up and were kind of looking around, and I could tell that it struck a chord. And it wasn't to call anybody
Yeah.
out. I wasn't being a dick.
Yeah.
I wanted people to really think about it
Think about it. Yeah.
and to take it back and
Mhm.
say, this was a powerful session that I was at. These people were crying,
Mhm.
getting out these stories, which was a good thing. You
Mhm.
know, crying is fine, allowing yourself to feel. And then of course, the last half is where we'd laugh it off with some of the funny calls and everything that come in. But going through that first portion of it and getting all of that out and being there for each other, even if someone doesn't share a story, they're there in support of the others who are. Now what's next?
Mhm.
What are you going to continue doing after that?
Yeah.
Now that you know that these folks have been holding on to these stories, these calls, where do we
Mhm.
go from there? So we look at coping mechanisms. We were talking about that
Mhm.
before we
Yeah.
started recording. And we were talking about ASMR. So I want to hear a little bit more about this, because you're right. There are some coping mechanisms out there that are not the greatest. I remember
Mhm.
coming home in the morning after a hard ass shift, and this would even be during the winter time, during a blizzard or something. I would get home at about 5 in the morning, and I would shovel out a path to my grill. I would grill up a T-bone for steak and eggs for breakfast, but I would have 2, sometimes 3 beers sitting in the snow because it's my own refrigerator,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't always drink them all, but I would have 1 or 2
Yeah. Mhm.
so that I could try to relax,
Mhm.
and I realized it really wasn't relaxing me. It's just what I was doing, and
Yeah.
it was a cycle,
Yeah.
and, I I stopped drinking. I'm going on, like, 5 years now, not because there was anything huge wrong with me, I just wanted to take a break. I did a sober
Yep.
October, and I've been like this ever since. I felt a lot better.
Yeah.
But, we talk about coping mechanisms, so tell me about some of this.
Yeah. I actually just recently gave up drinking as well. Probably about 3 months ago.
Mhm,
It wasn't anything really bad, but I just realized that maybe it was a little too much. And I know when I first started, I had day watch for I think a month, and then I went to evenings. And I noticed that when I was on day watch, because the time you get home, it's 5 o'clock when you get home, right? Like a little after 5. I noticed that I was drinking every single day. It would be the first I'd walk in, change, and go grab alcohol. And I think that's a coping mechanism that's so easy for a lot of people. But the thing is, that's a depressant, and
mhm.
that's not helping anything. So I have felt much better not drinking for the past 3 months. It's funny how your friends will respond to you. "Oh, well, I wanna go out drinking with you." I'm like, "Well, you can drink." I said, "I'll just drink water. It's fine. You can drink." Oh, and it's like, I have a pretty fun personality. Are you telling me you can't have fun with me if I don't drink alcohol with you? Like, you can
Right.
drink, you get drunk. I'll be
Yeah.
your DD, like
Right,
win-win.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's just funny how people respond to that. But I have noticed that has already helped me a little bit. Um, but yeah, my coping mechanisms, hiking is my number one go-to. I'll always say every once in a while I'll get in a funk and I won't really know what it is. Maybe it's just stuff that just keeps piling on, piling on. You got stuff at work or these calls or stuff outside of work, you're getting a little stressed out. Hiking is my favorite thing. There's something about getting on the top of a mountain and being at the peak of it, especially if you go alone. I love going alone, or I'll take my pup. He can't talk back to me. I could talk to him all day, but he can't say nothing back. So if we get to the top, it's just up there and it's quiet, and
Yeah.
I love it if there's nobody else up there. Like you said, driving home in the silence, sometimes you need silence, and that is the best thing. And getting to the top of
Mhm.
a mountain and looking out and just being there and feeling small and insignificant and just alive. It cleanses me out, clears me out every freaking time, no matter what crap I have going on. By the time I get to that bottom of that mountain, I feel so much better. That's my number one thing for when I'm not feeling good. That's my favorite coping mechanism. And then we were talking about ASMR. That's my daily thing that I do because I have such trouble sleeping. I've not been able to sleep well since becoming a police officer. I don't average near as many hours as I used to. I can't sleep through the night. I toss and turn. Last night I just can't lie and sleep anymore, and it sucks. So ASMR, almost every night I listen to it, it relaxes me. There's so many different artists that are out there that do so well, and it's different for everyone. I like whispering. Whispering just makes me really sleepy usually because I can never get sleepy to fall asleep. So when I get in bed, it's wild. If I get the right artist, um, they can make me sleepy in about 3 minutes where my eyelids are getting heavy. And that's like amazing because it normally takes me upwards of an hour to fall asleep to even get that sleepiness feeling.
Mhm.
So there's been a couple of them. One of them actually sent her something in the mail and she didn't know who I am. And I wrote a little note and I said, "Hello, I'm a police officer, and you have no idea how much you help me, that you make me fall asleep when I can't. Thank you for helping me." And so there are so many people out there that have no idea they're helping other people. They're just being like, "Oh yeah, I'm a digital gift and I'm making money and this is fun for me. It's my hobby," but they're actually helping people,
Yeah.
and they don't know it. So that
That's
is,
pretty awesome.
yeah.
For those who are watching and listening who might not know exactly what ASMR is, what is that exactly?
I think that stands for, I should have Googled it. I think it's auditory sensory motor reflex.
Mhm.
I think that's the correct thing. There's a lot of people who watch ASMR that it gives them what they call tingles. You know how you and I we've gotten goosebumps?
Yeah.
They can get it a whole lot. So they can hear like a sound and it'll give them the tingles. There's very few people that get that. I'm not one of those people. Normally it's well, if it's we're having a good story time. Or if I listen to live music, a lot of times it's a national anthem will give me that. Yeah, it's normally music that does that for me, but I wish that ASMR did that for me. It doesn't, but what I do know is it makes me fall asleep, and that's all that I needed to do, and that's good enough. So,
That's good. Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's definitely good. Some of the other coping mechanisms that I developed, and I wish I could go back in time and tell myself about this, because the last year and a half, what I was doing was yoga for one. Well, I was
Mm,
doing yoga. That really helped with a lot of things, and also meditation. So a lot of breathing techniques and everything, especially during some of those hard calls. I was able to go into those modes. And for those who are watching and listening, no, it's not gonna, you don't meditate that hard where you're falling asleep. That's not what I was doing. But there are
yeah.
breathing techniques to
Mhm,
center myself and keep myself calm. I mean, calm anyway, but in a different way. And it
mhm,
helps those on the phone that I'm speaking to, but also those on the radio. And then after I'm done with that harder call, it doesn't, it still hits me, right? But it's not as hard because
mhm,
I'm breathing through it. I'm centering
yeah,
myself, and I'm able to work through it in my own way. So for me,
yeah.
those are some of the things that I was doing during that time. Now you've got a couple projects and such that you're working on too, right? What are some of those?
Yeah, so my first one, is not going very well, but I need to work at it a little bit harder. I
Mhm.
think it is really hard for people to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And I posted a video when I did not have any intention. I was driving somewhere and it just came on my heart and I was like, "Man, I gotta pull over the car right now and film this," out of nowhere. And I was talking about my ex and how I went through emotional and verbal abuse through him, mental abuse, that I just dealt with for 8 years. I'm not sure why that I did. I could go back, I'd be like, "You freaking idiot, what are you doing?" Like, but you can't, it's already done and over. You made those mistakes.
Mhm.
And so all you can do is try to help someone before they make that mistake. And it was on my heart. And I just got on there and I was like, "Hey, I don't care who it is. If this is what this man is doing to you, get out. I don't care if he's, the father of your child. Get out. You don't need to do that. Don't sit here and be someone's punching and not physical." For me, it wasn't never physical, but don't be that punching bag for someone verbally and you think this is normal, this is okay, this is how my relationship should be, because it's not. It should not be that.
Yeah.
So I shared that. I almost didn't post it. I mean, I started tearing up in it and I thought, wow, this is just like, do I really want to put this out here? This is really heavy. This is like, the center of my being. This is old hurt. Like, do I want to appear this weak? And I was like, whatever. Sarah, if it helps one person out there, then it did its job. So I
Exactly.
posted it. I had people, somebody said, this is what I need to hear today. So I need to work on it harder, but I was trying to, on my YouTube channel, to have a separate safe space on there of a playlist just for that, to have people who say, hey, I went through this and this sucked, but I got out on the other side and this is me now. And I've asked some creators and have not gotten any videos back. And there's a few people who said, man, I would love to do this, but I don't want my PD to know it's me. And that's what my wall is people don't, because I was asking for a video, because I said, I'll do it on my YouTube. I'll share a video of you. Please keep it under 5 minutes. And I think I don't know if that's just too much for people. A lot of people, they'll say, well, I'm not very good at talking. I'm like, I promise you, if you set up your camera and you start talking about what's going to come out, and you're going to be surprised how well it comes out.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my first project that I really need to work on a little bit harder, that I have not been focusing on very much, because it's just like a little, kind of pull, from people. Something I'm doing on Friday that I came up with, I know we've been going for a while, so let me keep this story short. I was training for a full marathon back in 2020, because I ran it right before COVID hit. It was March 1st of 2020 is when I ran my first full marathon. And I was like, I'm going to have this wonderful running career. Also, that's a great coping mechanism. But, COVID hit, and then we didn't have any races for like 2 years. So stupid.
Right. It's like,
But
I'm
I
going
was
to run by myself.
Exactly.
Yeah, a
Everything
lot
went
of virtual
virtual.
races. Yeah.
Exactly. But when I was training, I was running 6 days a week, and every weekend I had really long runs, and it would add a mile every weekend. So near the end, I'm running around about 20 miles every freaking weekend. So it would take, a good 3.5, 4 hours every Saturday or Sunday, whichever day I picked. And on one of those runs, it was raining, and I ran past a car dealership, and there were a bunch of like little flags about this big. They were in the ground on wooden sticks, and one of the stakes had broken, and the flag was in good old Georgia clay. It was in some Georgia clay in a puddle, and the rain was hitting it. And I remember when I ran past it, I didn't like it, and I saw it, and I was like, "That's disrespectful." Not that it's anyone's fault. It just, it's just broken.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't like it, and I kept thinking about that flag when I was running all the way to my halfway point. I hit my halfway point, and I came back, and I said, "I'm gonna pick up that flag," and I did. I was waiting. I kept looking for it. So where the crap was that? Finally, I'm like, yes, here it is. Pick it up. I put it in my water pack, and that flag ran with me, did all of my training with me. Probably over 400 miles on that flag. By the end, I have it upstairs in my room. It's dirty. It's ripped because it was flying behind me. I had so many people that would honk. You know why? Because they saw the flag running down the side of the road. I had so many honks. I'm like, they're not honking for me. They're honking for this flag because they see this flag on my back, and I'm out here working. And I was telling someone this story about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and goosebumps, right? Just talking about, because I said I review it. I have it upstairs in my room. I'm never going to get rid of that flag. It means so much to me that it ran all those miles with me. 463 miles is how many miles I ran to train for that race, for a 26-mile race. That's how many, 6 months of running. And talking about it, I had an idea. And firsthelp.org has been collecting the numbers of first responder suicide, not just police, first responders who have committed suicide since 2016. I think in 2016 was just police officers, and then expanded in 2019 to include all first responders. They have a lot of data. And so I thought of an idea of getting a flag, which would be a first responder flag that carries all of the colors in it, and compiling the names of these people. Last year was 199, and writing their names on that flag and running a mile for each person. I did a lot of math. If that in the last few years it's been 190 and 199. It would
Wow.
take me 8 days and 25 miles a day, running slash walking. Um, and it's something that I want to do. I'm not sure if anybody's going to want to do it with me. Most people can't take off 8 days of work. I am able to, and I can do this. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be extreme um, physical pain. I mean, gosh, it's going to suck. But I want to bring awareness to suicide.
Mhm.
Nobody in policing wants to talk about it. It's the S word. We won't talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna make you talk about it because I can say this is what I'm doing. This is my flag. These are my sponsors. I'm gonna wear this on my shirt. I want to raise awareness, um, and I am hoping to make money that I can have people pledge money that I can give to First Help because First Help helps the families of the people that have committed suicide. Because ultimately, what we want is prevention. We don't want to help a family after the fact. Yes, that's what they're doing because it's needed, much
Right.
needed. That moral support is needed, but what we really need to be talking about is prevention of helping people who are in a bad mental state prior to them ever feeling this way. Because, like you said, they feel alone, and we shouldn't feel alone. You have to have someone to talk to. So I'm
Man,
actually,
that
yeah,
sounds awesome.
I'm pitching this idea on Friday to a lot of people and a lot of our local police departments around here. So getting prepared for that. So
We'll talk a little more about this off the air because I
okay,
have a thought.
okay,
Exactly.
great,
Yes, for this
awesome.
too. So
Okay,
with this project and everything else that you're doing, how can people find out more about you? Like on social media and
sure.
everything because you've got a big ass following as well on social media and stuff. So how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, once I work a little bit harder on this idea, I
Mhm.
might end up making a separate Instagram for it. I don't even have a name for it yet. I'm telling you, this is like in the basic idea right now. So
Yeah.
it's going to become a bigger project because I would love for it to be yearly. I mean, in my head, maybe that first year is just me running with my flag. But wouldn't it be cool if like 5 years from now, we've got like 30 people running and we all have our shirts on and and to raise it and continue raising awareness, that would be super cool. So I have ideas for this. And I don't know if I need to do a 501 yet. We're not there yet. We're just
Right. Yeah.
we're in the pitching stages. But for right
Yeah.
now, in order to find me, my social media is Sassy Blue Sister. So I have a rather large TikTok account under that name. My channel, because some people are very judgy. Oh, you're a cop, you cop talk, bleh, and they're very judgy. Well, no, I'm not making douchebag videos and be like, hey, look how cool I am. That's not what I'm doing. A lot of police officers are doing very stupid things on there. They're trying to thirst trap women. Get out of here with that. Like you're being ridiculous.
Right.
My videos, I do skits. I do a lot of skits. That a lot of them are first responders will get a little extra of a giggle, but civilians will have a blast. I work very hard on my content, and my brother runs Doug the Unicorn channel, and so he has a pretty big following too. It's quite silly. We're children friendly. We don't cuss. We don't talk political. There's nothing sexual in it. But the whole point of my TikTok channel is to help first responders who are depressed and if for a moment I could pull you out of whatever you're going through and you laugh at something, you're like, this is so dumb. Or, oh man, I relate to this. Gosh, I did this yesterday when I was at work. Because I'll have stuff that's just for cops,
Mhm.
on there or whatever. And so I have had a police officer who wrote me a letter and he said, hey, he said, I got injured on duty and I'm not the bacon maker for my family anymore. And he said, I was at home by myself while my wife is working. And he said, it's the worst I've ever felt my entire life. And he said, your channel and your brother's channel is what helped me get through because it's policing stuff. And he said, it helped me with my depression. And I wanted to say thank you. And that I was like, whoa, I didn't even know my
That's
stuff could
awesome.
do that.
Right.
So
Yes.
yes, so
Very
that is
cool.
how you can find me. And I have a YouTube brand new. The YouTube is, well, there's hardly anything on it, but I do have a YouTube by the same name as well, Sassy Blue Sister.
Damn.
Mhm.
Well, excellent work. And it has been awesome to have you on here and learn more
Thank you.
about you. I've got one last question for you
Sure.
before we wrap up. Um, During the time you've been doing all of this, with the knowledge that you have now, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning, What is some of the advice that you would give yourself?
Hmm. Um, I think realize how important your family and your friends are. It's very easy to withdraw as a person, and want to be alone or be with people that are like you, police officers, and not talk to people. And I think that's something that's really important. It's really easy. And I had people tell me that at the beginning, oh, you're gonna lose your friends. You just wait. I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Um, it kind of has already happened, and I know it. And I have people in my life right now that have been on my mind for the last week that I'm like, it's my fault. Like this is crumbling because I haven't made that effort. And if you don't make that effort, how long are these people going to be around in your life? Um, so to me, that out of anything in the world, that's the most important is your family, and behind that is friendships. I'll always put that above work. Yes, I am very passionate about work, and but it's not your whole life. And I think a lot of police officers get a little too wrapped up as in, "Hello, I am officer blah blah." No, you're not. You have a first name, and when you're off duty, say your freaking name because you're not an officer when you're off duty. You're a human being, so act like it. And we don't have to talk about work unless we choose to, but like get unplug and get away. And that's what I've been learning to do is unplug and enjoy my life. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Um, One last thing. This goes back to coping mechanism in my social media. I do have a very tiny TikTok account. It's called Why Haven't I List. And the question is, why haven't I? And it was something I had started prior to my accident, but
Mhm.
I started in 2017, and I wish I had it, but it's over there and I can't reach it. It's this beautiful little leather book that I have, and I wrote down stuff that I've always wanted to do, I've never done. And I'm not talking about like travel to Paris or, it's stuff
Right.
that's
Yeah.
achievable.
Yeah.
You want to know what number 3 was on the list? Eat a whole box of cereal in one sitting. I had never done it. My mama always said, no, Sarah, take the cereal. I freaking love cereal. And it's silly stuff, right? Go
Right.
skinny
Yeah.
dipping. I did that this past year. I had never skinny dipped my entire freaking life. Why? Why haven't I done that? So this actually is, I can't believe I didn't talk about this earlier. This is one of my main coping mechanisms is this little teeny tiny channel that nobody gives a snot about. And I care about so much and I work so hard on it. But it is me doing adventures because after my accident, I was like, man, if I would have died, did I make enough memories? And the answer was no. And since then, I've taken a very different perspective on life. And I try to do as many adventures as I can. And I have over 500 things in that book, and I mark them off. So
That's
the point
awesome.
of that channel is not about me and my adventures that I'm doing. Sure, it catalogs them for me for my memories, which is why I film it, because I want to be
Right.
able to go back and say, oh, yeah, I did that with this person. And I always
Mhm.
pick someone to go with me. It's not about me, is me spending time with someone and making memories with them. And my hope for that channel was that someone else would watch it, see what I did, and say, you know what, I want to make my own. That's the point of it. Go make your own list and go do the stuff that you can do. That's easy. That doesn't cost money. So yeah, that's my number one coping mechanism, and I just hope that other people realize that
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, get out
I
there
love
and
it
make memories.
because yeah, making memories, putting life into perspective and everything. That is exactly why I have this tattoo that I have on my wrist, and it's like a clock, it's digital, but it says now, and it means the time is now. So that's why I have that. There's a lot of things that have happened to me as well that put life into perspective, and I am living it to the fullest.
Love it. Absolutely
It
love it.
it has been an honor to have you on and to talk to you, and damn it, we need to do this again because there's a lot of stuff that we could have talked about,
I
and
know. I told you I
these
talk a lot.
no, 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 but this is good. So this is the main stuff, and we're
Mhm.
definitely going to have to do a part
Yeah,
2, but thank
I
you
would love
for
to.
your perspective, for the job that you do, and just for being a great human. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a blast.
Awesome. Good. I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And then for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next gen core services. You can follow us on social media, and that's going to be on Facebook, Twitter, all that good shit. Bottom left-hand corner of the screen, or if you're listening audio-wise, it's links.co/WTT podcast, and that's links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. That will take you to my bio page. Everything is listed there. You can listen to the most recent episode of the podcast, and you can check out all of the social media, where to follow. You can email me from there. You can order Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is Our Everyday. This is a book that has that highlights a lot of the stories that were sent in, that were submitted for the I Am 911 movement, as well as some extra stuff that I have in there as well. It's also available as an ebook. Eventually, it'll be coming out on Audible, and I will be recording that. So there's a lot of different things that are coming up with this, but you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere that you can get a book, you can get it there. So make sure to check that out. And also, part of that bio page, if you want to become a subscriber of the podcast to get bonus content, get episodes a week early, discounts to the store, swag, all kinds of stuff. Once again, links.co/WTT podcast. This can be seen on YouTube as well as Twitter, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and within the trenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.